So if you find this sleep story helpful or interesting, then give it a thumbs up, leave any comments that you've got below, and if you aren't already, subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon so you can receive notifications of when future sleep stories go live. I have dozens and dozens of stories already on my channel that you can go and search. I also release new stories every single week, so I hope you enjoy this story. So just take a moment to allow your eyes to close, and as you let your eyes close, you can begin to relax. And while you begin to relax, I'm just going to tell this sleep meditation in the background. And as you listen along to the sleep meditation, you can begin to just drift off in your mind. And while you drift off in your mind, you can have a sense of walking through some woodland. And as you walk through that woodland, so you can see moonlight shining down in a meadow in the distance. And you continue to walk through the woodland, following that woodland path, hearing the sounds of each footstep that you take, hearing the rustling leaves overhead. Noticing the occasional silvery shard of light break through those leaves and those branches above you and dance on that path in front of you. And you can hear animals in the woods as you continue your journey. And you're heading toward that meadow. And you can notice that there's a certain mutedness to the sound here in the woodland. That sound seems to be absorbed by the trees, by the ground. And that although you can hear the breeze in the trees overhead, you can barely feel the breeze on your face. And you walk out of that woodland into that meadow. And the meadow is just illuminated by that full moon up in the sky. And as you gaze up in the sky, you can notice whether there are any clouds, or whether you can just see stars, perhaps patches of colour in the sky. And this meadow is an overgrown meadow up on a hill with long grass just waving so comfortably in the breeze. And you can notice how the wind can blow on your face, noticing the temperature of that wind. How there's a fuller sound out here in the meadow. And as many of the animals out here sleep, so you walk through that meadow, walking down the hill, heading down to a canal. And as you walk down that meadow, seeing the faded blue of the hills in the distance, seeing the way the moonlight twinkles and sparkles on the water of the canal. You find your way down to a footpath along the edge of that canal, and notice how those footsteps change and sound more gravelly as you walk along the footpath. before reaching a barge that you moored up here earlier in the day. Boarding that barge, climbing onto the back, letting yourself into the main living area, turning on a light, and relaxing down at a table for a moment before making yourself a cup of tea and just thinking about this holiday, this trip that you're on, where you travel along in the barge. You moor at different locations. You go for long walks, exploring the surrounding countryside. And in the evening you relax down before carrying on your journey the next day. And after relaxing for a moment, finishing the tea, you settle down for the night, drifting and floating comfortably asleep. And the next day you continue your journey. You get the rope into the boat. You continue on that barge along the canal, chugging along so gracefully, slowly and peacefully, with the warmth of the sun rising in the sky. And as you continue along, you approach a lock. And you're on your own, so you have to pull up that barge, disembark, walk down to the lock, open those first gates, go back to the barge, and continue your journey through those first gates. And then you close the gates behind you. And then slowly open the gates in front of you. And as you do, just ever so slightly, it allows the water to start flowing in. And the boat gently rises up. And as that water flows in, so the gate can be opened a little faster until the water level is the same as the other side of the gate. Then you go back to the barge, pass through the gate, leave the barge, go and close that gate behind you, and then continue on your journey, just very slowly, peacefully, travelling through the countryside, seeing meadows around you, woodland, the most beautiful blue sky. And after a while, you spot a location to moor up the barge. You let it drift in, reverse just a little to bring yourself to a halt. You make sure that the barge is secure and disembark. and decide to go on a walk here. And you've brought a paper map with you. So you unfold that map, having to hold it wide in front of you. You look at where you are now. You see the dotted line of a footpath you're going to follow, leading up the hill into the woodland, through that woodland, and then out the other side of the woodland, up another hill, to some ancient ruins up on the hill. And you look around you, you identify where that path seems to be. Put the map away, carefully folding it down, putting it into your backpack, and then following that path up through the meadow and into the woodland. And you walk through that woodland, hearing the sounds of summer birds, allowing your mind to wander, allowing yourself to drift and relax deeper with the experience. Almost like being out in nature is just helping your shoulders relax, helping your whole body relax, your breathing relax and calm down. Hearing birds in the trees, a flapping of wings as birds launch themselves out of the treetops. Walking out the other side of this woodland and turning up that hill towards the ruins. And the ruins are just a few standing stones in a circle, reasonably low down standing stones. And you walk to the top of that hill, and from up here you walk into the standing stones. And you look around you, and you turn around while looking, and notice that from up here you can see over the woodland, off into the distance. You can see in all directions, and you can understand why, perhaps. Whatever was here was built here. You start taking some photographs from up here and of the stones. And then you sit down in the middle of the stones, close your eyes and wonder if you can recapture any of that energy of this location. Whether you can connect with something here and have a sense of what it must have been like to be here before these were ruins. And while you relax, you let your eyes close. You take some deep, purposeful breaths. And with each out-breath, you relax deeper and deeper into the experience. And as you relax deeper into the experience, so you feel this sense of your mind feeling a little dizzy in a comfortable way. Almost like you've been laughing too much. And you have that sense, almost like you've been laughing too much. And you go with that feeling. And as you do, you notice sounds around you seem to quieten down. And you don't know for sure whether it's the sounds quietening down or whether it's your inner focus increasing. But what you notice is that you have this sense of the colour purple forming around you. And you can't see that purple, you just have a sense of that purple. And you can't explain how you know it's a purple. It's just a feeling that you have. And then you have this sense almost like somehow there's energy coming from the stones, passing through that ground to where you sit, and passing through and into you, around your body, in through your lungs with each breath, into the heart, and then pumped throughout the body, almost giving you a connection to this location, a bit like plugging a plug into a wall socket. And you start to hear sounds of people chanting, sounds of people walking around, sounds of people tapping on drums. And you wonder whether that's just in your mind, or whether if you opened your eyes, you would see this other world. And then you feel this deep sense of warmth on your face, like the sun is shining perfectly onto you, like a beam of energy, helping to fill your body with peace and comfort. And then you hear a voice saying, "Open your eyes." And as you hear that voice, sitting in that circle, you open your eyes. And you see someone standing in front of you. And you can't work out what era their clothes are from. But you know that it's definitely not modern. And you notice, out of your peripheral vision, that there are others around. People with drums, people dancing, that the stones are taller than they were when you closed your eyes, that they haven't yet been worn down so much. And this person explains that they're the gatekeeper to this shrine, that they greet people on arrival and they guide people home. That people come here, but very few access the gate. But you have accessed the gate, rather than just walking around, taking some photos, deciding that's a nice circle of stones, and then leaving again. You took time to stop, to slow things down, to connect with the land, connect with nature, become one with the world. And you did that in the middle of these stones. And so after a point, the frequencies of the stones, the frequencies that they vibrate at, synchronizes with specific brainwave patterns. And once that synchronization happens, it amplifies with each breath, and it amplifies the longer you remain connected. And the more it amplifies, the more the gate opens and realities merge. The reality here and the reality where you sat down. And at that point where they merge, you appear here, and the gatekeeper is always on their post, always here for new arrivals. And you stand up and you look around. And you notice this culture must be at least a few thousand years old. You can see the view from up here. You can see that things look very different. And the gatekeeper says that when you visit here, you can take this opportunity to go on a spiritual journey, and that they'll take you to the person you need to see, and they guide you from the gate. They guide you out of that circle, down the hill, down to what looks like a small cabin. With an alpaca stood outside that cabin. And the alpaca is just eating grass. And you notice that here, when you reach over and stroke the side of that alpaca, small sparkles of light pass around your hand and glisten and glow off of that alpaca. And you almost have this sense of hearing a tingling sound while stroking. And the gatekeeper knocks on the cabin door. The door opens. The gatekeeper says that you've just come through the gate before they turn and head back to the gate. The person in this building smiles at you, welcomes you in, asks you to take a seat, and you sit down in the seat, and they make you a drink. They ask you where you came from, what your world is like. They explain that there are people from many worlds, many futures, who visit. And they won't reveal who or when from. Only that your time is just one of many. And you ask if there are people from even further in the future than you've come from. And they say that people come here from much further in the future than you've come from. And you take some comfort in that knowledge that there are people able to visit from a long way off in the future. And you don't know how many people, or how they discover how to access that gateway. And you get told that passing through the gateway and having this experience is a one-time thing, that once you return, the gate will close to you and you won't be able to re-access it. And they say that the reason for that is that if too many people kept re-accessing that gateway, they'd be inundated with time travellers. And they don't want that. They want people to either make the most of the experience or not, but only have one shot at it. And those who choose not to can learn and develop from the experience back in their own time. And you feel that on some level you understand. And they show you through this cabin. They open a door at the back of the cabin, and you're surprised at how big this place is, that it looks small from the outside. And through this door is a vast library. And at the back of the library is a book, sitting on a shelf on its own. And it's a pretty large book. And there's a sapphire embedded in the front of the book, and a golden rim. And the edge of all the pages is golden. And then just inside that golden rim is some purple. And this book looks so ornate and so expensive. And they open it and they turn to a specific page. And you notice that all the handwriting, all the writing in this book is handwritten, and so well written that every page starts off with the most elaborate letter. And then there are pictures on pages, all hand drawn, of different plants, different animals. And the one thing you notice is that each row of text just seems to be a never-ending row of letters, that there seems to be no punctuation. And you wonder how anyone could read this. And you're surprised to see that that text is justified, that it's perfectly straight down both sides. And with the thickness of this book, you wonder how long it would have taken someone to compile it all. And they start reading from the book, and their voice when they start reading has a deeper tonality, a more measured tonality. There's a certain rhythm to their tonality. And while you listen to them speaking, they light a candle. They place that in front of the book. And they do this without drawing any attention to it. And as you continue looking at the book and listening to them reading, so that flickering light becomes more pronounced out of your peripheral vision. And you find that the flickering seems to almost be like the movement of the eyelids. And from time to time you wonder whether you've just blinked or whether it was a flickering of that flame. And other times you know you blinked, until eventually, while standing on the spot, you find your eyes blink shut. And you don't at first notice that that's what has happened. You're still hearing their voice. You still have this sense of the flickering, and then you notice, after a few moments, your eyes are actually closed. And you start drifting with their voice, almost like their voice is the ocean waves that you're following onto a shore. Just relaxing and rolling gently into the shore on the waves of that voice, finding it so peaceful and calm, and almost like you've rolled into the shore on the waves of that voice, and then found yourself floating in a breeze, like their voice has taken on the wind that's going with you deeper into the experience. And then as you have this sense of drifting like a floating leaf in a breeze, you don't know whether it's just mental imagery or a new experience, but you find yourself feeling like you're drifting toward a tree and then landing in front of that tree. And you can see in front of you a wide tree. And then beside you, you hear a noise and notice a small fairy. And this fairy tells you that they're to be your guardian angel, that they are who you've chosen, and that you don't know that you chose them. It was a mutual choosing, that it was a pairing of personalities, a pairing of consciousness, a synchronization. And they ask you to close your eyes, sitting down in front of that tree, while they land on your shoulder. And they say, as you feel me sat here on your shoulder, just focus on that feeling. And as you focus on that feeling, just have a sense of floating up out of your body, floating, drifting higher up out of your body, so that you can see yourself down there, resting under the tree. And then follow me as we fly to the nearby mountains. And you drift and float deeper and deeper inside and higher above yourself. And then find yourself looking down upon yourself, and then following that fairy towards those mountains. And you don't know how to fly, you just seem to be able to fly, just by thinking about where you're going. And you head to a cave in the top of the mountains, and there's a fire burning, crackling in this cave. And you're asked to pick up some chalk and draw a horse with wings on the wall of that cave. And so you do this. And then the fairy says, just step back a moment. And you step back. And you notice a slight twinkling of that chalk. The fairy says, now just take one of those sticks from the fire, and you take one of the sticks from the fire. The fairy says, just pat around that drawing you've made, And you start patting around that drawing, and you can see the bits of fire falling off as you pat on that drawing. Hear the crackling sound on the wood. And then you step back and you see a slight orange glow around the outside of your chalk drawing. And then you notice a fuzziness. And then that chalk drawing begins to morph and take on a more perfect horse-like shape from the one that you drew. And then it begins to become larger and larger. And the fuzziness increases. And then you hear the sound of hooves in the cave. And as that fuzziness fades, you hear the neigh of a horse. And you see Pegasus stood in the cave with a glowing white coat. And the fairy says to get on to the back of Pegasus. And so you climb on, and the fairy sits on your shoulder. And you nudge the sides of Pegasus. And Pegasus gallops along and launches out of the cave, stretching his wings, flapping and flying up higher and higher, flying higher than the mountains, higher than the clouds. And then once Pegasus is so high, you can look down on that earth below. He turns to face north, starts galloping, and then galloping faster and faster, and you can see the northern lights getting closer and closer, and Pegasus galloping faster and faster. And the northern lights from here seem to take on more of a physical looking feel to them, like almost a physical barrier of light. And Pegasus gets faster and faster, and everything around seems to start to warp, before in a flash you find yourself in a space of stillness inside the northern lights. But you can't see the earth below. You can't see stars overhead. All you can see is pulsating and moving light around you in multiple colours. And there's just silence. And then from this silence and this darkness, light begins to appear. And the fairy says that you've entered the land of the gods. As you see these giant pillars with what looks like gods carved on them. And it's almost like entering a large gate. Like this is a location for greeting people on arrival. And Pegasus lands down in this area. bows his head. And you and the fairy dismount. And the fairy says, "Come with me." And you follow that fairy as they walk through this area. A mix between land, but it looks overexposed, like everything is brighter, and yet there seems to be no sun. Everything just seems to glow and sparkle and shine. Everything just seems to emanate peace and tranquility. And you walk near the most beautiful lake, and walk along the edge of that lake. And you can see different animals, and they resemble animals you're familiar with. But you have this sense that there's something different about them, something serene, the way they all get on, the way everything here seems to be in harmony, the way everything here is almost like an orchestra playing so perfectly. And you follow that fairy all the way to a chest. And the chest is sat in front of a tree. And you open the chest. Inside the chest, you find a crystal. And the fairy says, "Look through the crystal." So you hold it up toward some light. You gaze through it, and as you do, you notice that it seems to make thousands of versions of this reality reflected inside that crystal. And the deeper you look into the crystal, the more reality you see. And the fairy says that this crystal is part of their connection together. It's the physical manifestation of their connection together. That as your guardian angel, they're always there with you. But when you're back in your world, they're not going to be visible. And so the way to know that they're there, the way to have a sense of exactly where they are, and a sense of the connection, and to be able to communicate with each other, you'll have that crystal that connects worlds, that connects all realities, that's tuned to you and them. And you take that crystal, you close the chest, and they say they've got one more thing to show you. And they walk you to a hatch in the ground. And they say, "Open the hatch." So you open up that hatch. And they say, "There's 10 steps. Just close your eyes and walk down those steps." And so you close your eyes and you count your way down the steps. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, walking all the way down those steps, noticing the sounds above fading away. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. as you step at the very bottom. And then the fairy does something, you don't know what, but you can notice through your eyelids that wherever you are is now light. And they tell you to open your eyes. And as you do, you notice the most beautiful mosaic on the floor, to rival even the best Roman floors that you've ever seen. And you see the tallest sunflower that seems to beam light. It's that bright, and it looks so healthy. And you're curious how this sunflower can be here, underground. And the fairy explains that there's life everywhere here. That this is just one area, one room. And you wonder why you were shown this room. And the fairy says that there's something here even more for you. Something that's personal from them as the fairy. And they fly over to a jewellery box, the most beautiful jewellery box. And you open that jewellery box, and inside you see a bracelet. And they tell you this bracelet is a gift from them to you, as a personal gift. That it's a thank you for the two of you sharing your future together. That's a gift they made centuries earlier, for the day that would come when they would become a guardian angel. And they help you to put that on your wrist before you leave this room. Then head back to Pegasus. And then nudging the sides of Pegasus, you fly your way back out of this area. And like before, you seem to fly faster and faster and faster, until everything around you seems to stretch, as if you're heading down towards the South Pole, except that you can't see anything familiar around you. And then you notice a wall of colour again. And as you pass through that, in a flash, everything goes dark. And then from the darkness, you begin to see the earth below you again. And Pegasus takes you back down to the earth. And you dismount. And Pegasus launches into the sky, heads back to that cave. And you end up finding your way back to meditating by a tree. And then when it's time, you notice a mist forming, and you follow that mist as the fairy tells you that mist will take you home. And you walk, following the mist, all the way back to that circle. You see the gatekeeper standing there. And you and the guardian angel, the fairy, enter that gate, sit back down. You close your eyes. And as you do, you notice things around you are changing. You find yourself back in your normal time. And then you open your eyes in this normal time, wondering about the experience. And as you wonder, you check to see if you have that crystal. You find the crystal. You hold that in your hand. And as you do, you feel a connection to that guardian angel. You know that they're watching over you, that they're with you here and now, that they're there to help and support you, to bring you comfort, and for you to work together for wellness and personal growth. And you're curious what else comes with having a guardian angel who's watching over you and supporting you. And as you hold that crystal, you notice the bracelet on your wrist. You realize that's made it to reality as well. And you have this sense from the guardian angel that the more you meditate, the more you focus on that crystal, the clearer the connection with the guardian angel, to the point where you can hear them and then perhaps even see them as you learn and develop that connection. And you head back to the barge. You continue your journey. And that night you drift off asleep. The next day continuing the journey to your destination, before heading back home. And as you head home, so it begins to rain while you drive in your car. You can smell the rain around you, hear that regular summer rain, feel the relaxing feeling of the sounds of the raindrops, noticing the most beautiful rainbow in the sky as that rain begins to pass and the sun shines on those clouds, finding your way all the way home. And once home, you settle in, and that night you head to bed. And you drift and float comfortably asleep, thinking about the experience you've had, thinking about the ways that you can enhance the experience, the ways you can develop that connection with your guardian angel, the ways that they can work with you to bring peace and comfort, to help you relax, to help you manage life's stresses and strains and challenges, to be that hand that gently rests on your shoulder at a time when you need it, that rests on your shoulder and almost communicates calmness, relaxation, a sense of being loved and supported, that just helps to slow thoughts down, to soften thoughts, to help thoughts of different things come in when challenging thoughts come in. And as you drift asleep, and every future night when you drift asleep, that connection with the guardian angel strengthens, deepens, as does the healing and well-being, and the growth towards the future you would like, and you drift and float so comfortably, so peacefully, asleep.